Well, thanks to Donald Trump, free speech is back in vogue, and for me, nothing says free speech better than going head-to-head with my favourite lefty. But why stop at one? Why not 2 against 1? Yes, it's time to get down and dirty with former Senator and Labor Party power broker Graham Richardson and former Press Secretary to the Prime Minister Julia Gillard and founding partner of Watson Advisory, that's a mouthful, Darrin Barnett, to tackle the big questions of the day. Hello to you both, my favourite lefties. How are you guys? Now,
good, thanks, Rowan.
Excellent. The rules are simple. I make a statement, an assertion, if you like, then you both try and prove me wrong. Can you do it?
Easily.
Dazza, not so confident there, Darrin.
No, I'm happy to let Richo bat first. I'll bat at number 3.
Excellent. OK, here's my first premise. Bringing 3,000 migrants into Australia from Gaza is an unacceptable threat to all Australians and especially Jewish Australians. Richo?
I think I have to agree. I don't like it very much at all.
Why is Albo doing this, Richo?
Look, I think it's a humanitarian gesture, and I think he's a humanitarian. So humanitarians make humanitarian gestures, don't they?
That's nonsense, Richo, and you know it's nonsense. He's chasing votes in the western suburbs of Sydney and Melbourne. That's what he's doing. And he's also bringing in, making it very easy and advertising for those from the so-called occupied, they're not occupied, territories of the West Bank to come here as well. Why, Darrin, are we bringing in people from the Middle East, from troubled spots, hot zones in the Middle East into Australia? Isn't that posing an unacceptable risk to Jewish Australians?
Look, the risk to Jewish Australians is significant. I live in the eastern suburbs of Sydney. At the moment, we have a nightly helicopter flyover that goes for a couple of hours from around 1 a.m. to 3 a.m. And New South Wales Police obviously working with other authorities to try and limit the anti-Semitic attacks that have been taking place over the past couple of months. So, look, things for Jewish Australians are dire, I agree. But it's also true, I agree with Richo, that at a humanitarian level, there are people who need assistance, and Australia is in a position to provide that assistance. So provided that we can do adequate background checks and vetting of those who come to Australia, I certainly don't have a problem at all if we are carrying some of the load from that humanitarian crisis in the Middle East.
OK, so let's take a look at this humanitarian crisis. Let's just take a look at some of the footage of Gaza as it is at the moment and some of the reactions of the people that you both are saying for humanitarian reasons this country should be bringing in. Have a look. So, Richo, explain to me who in those crowds is worthy of this generous Australian humanitarian gestures that you're so fond of, and why should the Prime Minister think that there is not a significant risk to not only Jewish Australians but to all Australians, but bringing in people who there we saw them cheering and jeering at 3 female hostages being released. We saw the fact that the crowds in Gaza don't seem to me to be in all that much disagreement with the actions of Hamas. So why are we bringing them in, Richard?
I think that's a reasonable question because it worries me. I'm not panicked over it, but I am worried by it. I think when you look at scenes like that, you have to react, I think, by recoiling away and saying, we don't want that in this country.
Good. Well, Richard, you've got a hotline to Albo, so can you please phone him up? I don't. He doesn't take my calls. I don't know why. But if you can phone him and say, please put a stop to bringing Gazans in. It is unacceptable risk to Jewish Australians and to all Australians, in my opinion. Now, listen, let's move on to something we might find more disagreement on. I suggest that we should immediately abandon net zero. We should pull out of Paris if we are to hitch our wagon onto the great American Renaissance, which is clearly occurring. We are going to see an economic boom in the States, the likes of which you haven't seen before, and Australia is either part of that or Australia is going to be left behind. Richo, should we be abandoning net zero and pulling out of Paris in solidarity and to support the Americans and to, more importantly, so we can join the American economic boom?
No, we should not. When Australia signs up to a deal, I think Australia should keep it. I don't believe in walking away from solemn promises.
And
Never have.
What's the purpose of the promise, Richard?
Well, the purpose of the promise is to have a better planet, obviously.
Well, how? When America and China and India and all the massive polluters, Australia's 1.5% of the world's carbon emissions, we can make no difference, Darrin. Why on earth are we part of something which is economically harmful to this country? We are virtue signalling. Richo says that we should stay in things even if they're damaging our country economically. Do you agree, Darrin?
I'd say that 2 on 1 is 4 on 1. We've got Tony Abbott who's signed it, Richo, myself and Peter Dutton. So it's a pretty strong lineup of those who hold our position. Look, I think there are lots of complications with the Paris Agreement. I don't disagree with that at all. However, we have signed up to it. We should abide by it. But I think also there's going to be a bigger question to me, to be honest, is what's going to happen with the Inflation Reduction Act? What's going to happen with assistance for renewables for renewables production in the United States? If that diminishes, is there an opportunity for Australia to become a world leader? Whether you agree with the climate change element of it, the economics of it, the world is moving towards renewables. Australia is trying to place itself as a player in terms of
Darrin, I'm sorry.
And I have no problem with that.
No, Darrin, not only do you have no problem with it, you have no proof to back up what you're saying. The world is not moving towards a renewables economy. In Britain at the moment, 1% of their energy is coming from windmills, which they've spent a fortune on. The rest of their energy, they're having to go to Europe, to nuclear power and to other sources of power from Europe to get their energy. All around the world, Donald Trump is going to be putting an end to renewables in America, so that's all over there. They'll be tearing up the windmills. Australia is going to be the Luddites and the party. We're going to be left way behind. No nuclear, rotting, rusting old windmills out off Newcastle and elsewhere. Darrin, you are living in fantasy land if you think we can be a renewable superpower. We can't even open a gold mine, Richo. Tell me, Richo, about this
hang on, very
fantasy
quickly.
world,
We can't open a coal plant either because no one will finance it, and no one's going to finance nuclear either unless the government does it. So we're stuck in a bit of a bind, aren't we?
We're not stuck in a bind at all. All we have to do is basically scrap the moratorium on nuclear and let the market take care of it. You watch, they'll come. Richo, why on earth are we pretending? Can you give me any evidence that Australia can be a renewable superpower? Where is the evidence? We can't even keep the lights on in Queensland. They're telling people, workers in Queensland, not to even go in a lift because they don't have enough energy. Where's this magical superpower built on green hydrogen, which doesn't work, which we can't afford as well, Darrin? Where's this superpower? Where's the evidence of it? Richo, you're a pragmatic man.
The only future for us for the next 50 years must include coal. And we've just got to stop dancing around that and admit it.
And nuclear, Richo?
Oh, nuclear is a side issue. It'll just hang around and do a tiny fraction of what we need, but it'll never be the central source of energy for Australia.
And so picking you up on your claim before that we should, if we sign something, we should stick to it, do you believe that's the case even if it does irreparable economic harm to future generations of this country? At what point do we show leadership in this country, Richo, or do we just sign something that some idiot signed a few years ago and we go along with it? Is that the case?
No, first off, if you lead Australia and you sign an agreement, I don't think that you can be regarded as some sort of fringe idiot. You've been elected by the majority of Australians, and they're a pretty solid bunch. So I don't accept the basic premise.
Okay, but nobody ever elected anybody to go and sign up to net zero. That was done as a broken promise by Scott Morrison. So I think I've won that point. That about exhausts both of those topics. Darrin, when we said it was 2 against 1, it was actually Richo and I against you. I guess you figured that one out as well.
Very enjoyable. Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Take care. See ya.